This is augforums.com Real Talk, an unfiltered, independent perspective on Acumatica Cloud ERP. My name is Tim Rodman, and I want to mention three things in this pre-recorded intro before we get started. First, thank you to our sponsors. Our first sponsor is Paya. Paya offers Acumatica users a suite of industry-leading payment orchestration tools. Far beyond native Acumatica payments, Paya enables EMV, NFC terminals for counter sale. They offer a frictionless customer portal through their click-to-pay solution, and they support most e-commerce platforms and point-of-sale solutions used with Acumatica, such as One Retail and AcuPOS. And best of all, omni-channel reconciliation is available for all of their solutions. Our second sponsor is DataSelf. DataSelf Analytics is a revolutionary reporting solution that enables organizations to make the most informed decisions faster and easier than ever. It uniquely simplifies business intelligence, empowers anyone to build and access dashboards, and delivers critical business insight when and where you need it. Our third sponsor is 24/7 Digitize. 24/7 Digitize is an Acumatica bookkeeping service provider that helps derive the best value from your Acumatica investment by maintaining your books utilizing Acumatica's best practices and guidelines. Please take a minute to support this podcast by clicking each one of the sponsor banners located at augforums.com/sponsors. Our sponsors track clicks, and every click helps to support this podcast. The second thing I'd like to mention is that I'm always looking for victims. I mean guests. If you use Acumatica in any capacity, no matter how small, I'd love to talk with you. Check out augforums.com/podcast and click the link near the top of the page to learn more about being a guest on the podcast. Third and finally, I'd love to see you listed on my Rolodex. Check out augforums.com/Rolodex to find out who else is using Acumatica and read the instructions at the top to see how you can add yourself to the list. All right, that's it for the pre-recorded intro. Let's get started. Today is Thursday, September 8th, 2022, and this is episode number 96. Reza, I forgot to ask how to say your last name, so I'll try. Reza Aghaei, Advanced Acumatica Approval Maps. Reza, thanks for coming on, and please correct my attempt at your last name.
No problem at all. It's Aghaei, but that's fine. It's a difficult family name to pronounce. So
say it one more time. Say it one more time.
Aghaei.
Okay. I'll have to work on that one. Hey, before we talk advanced Acumatica approval maps and the thing that you developed, how about you give us your brief origin story? Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? And what's your career path? How does it look so far?
Sure. I was born in Iran, so grew up there as well. So I finished my bachelor degree in accounting from Isfahan University, then finished my master degree in accounting as well from Tehran University. I started working when I was studying my master. I started working for an local ERP company, like about a couple of years there. That's how I got involved in the ERP world. After that, at that couple of years, I started and I worked different roles in accounting, finance, project accounting, manufacturing environment, the construction companies, around 25 years in total. About 9 years as CFO for one of the largest electronic manufacturing company back home in Iran. And 2014, I moved to Canada here I worked in different fields, mostly in construction and project environment. About 3 years ago, and early 2020, I started for a decent size construction company. They would do investment projects, developments, and construction as well. Later in mid-2021, the company felt the need to replace the old ERP system we were using for over 30 years. It was Sage 300 CRE. And I was the one kind of assigned to this task to review different ERP systems in the market, pick the one that most is appealing to the company needs and requirements. I reviewed a bunch of mid-size ERP companies. Definitely, we eliminated SAP and those big ones like Oracle and JD Edwards, because mostly because of the cost, and also we didn't think gonna add that much of value. Out of 6 mid-size ERP that we decided can be a fit for the company, I did a in-depth analysis on all of them, narrowed it to 3. Then at the end, I came up with a gap analysis on this 3. Acumatica was the closest to the company needs. And early 2022, this company went live on Acumatica. Aside to the built-in functionalities, I have developed quite a bit of customization with a little bit of help from a third party on the approval on the project side, and quite a bit. It's maybe, even though they are a customization, they are heavily used, and I can say maybe around 50-60% of the ERP usage goes around these customizations. That's a little bit of short background and how we got in here.
That's interesting. So it sounds like your background was a lot, not just on the IT side of ERP, but specifically on the finance side of ERP, at least earlier on. Is that correct?
That is correct. So I worked for 3 years for an ERP company that at the end I was working as the team lead for the ERP implementation. I had a tendency toward the technology, even though after that I worked for different companies as controller, as CFO, as project accountant, and different roles, but always carried that knowledge and tried to utilize that knowledge and expand on it. So even though I'm not a software engineer, I have developed thousands, and maybe just in this project that I have in here, it's over 12,000 code, C# code running, and all the customization running behind the scene to make these things happen, even though it's not that big on the interface, but the codes behind it's a lot really. So yeah, that's I would call myself mostly accountant, but an accountant who has a pretty decent understanding of the technology and computer world, and more specifically on the coding as well.
That's interesting. So before, we're going to talk about.
I can hear you. Sorry.
How about now? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Before we turn the corner into what you developed, like, had you written code for other ERPs before, or was there something about Acumatica that sort of woke up the coder in you?
No, I have done coding in the earlier as well. When I was in Iran, I did the same. And it's always, there are some needs that you can't really get out from the ERP systems. Sometimes I personally prefer not to, as much as I can. But sometimes you really don't have options. You have to do it. For example, the older technologies, you were able to directly connect to the databases. You would need to extract data into Excel, but the older ERP systems, even though they were running on some databases like SQL or Oracle, those type of databases, you still were not able to directly extract data into Excel. Even the company I used to work before implementing Acumatica, so I had to develop some stuff using the VBA stuff and using the Excel tables to extract data and manipulate data easily in Excel, or import it back, kind of in Acumatica terminology, write backs as needed. Just to be efficient and more effective and using the time more effectively instead of all the time printing out PDF files, then plugging numbers into Excel and then playing with numbers in Excel. So yeah, that was kind of neat for me, just to be efficient. I tried to do a little bit of coding sometime. That would help save time for me at month ends, and during the time, anytime I would not, for example, need to run a project report, instead of printing out and all those things and then manipulating that and possibly eliminating some of the items that we didn't want to present or whatever reason, then extracting data into Excel directly, manipulating data, then providing the report the way you want.
Well, that's cool. I think that's a powerful combination when you have that business background and then you go into coding. I've seen it happen the other way around too, right? Some people start in coding and they make the jump. I feel like it might be harder to make the jump from the coding to the business side. But either way, if you get there and you can do both sides, I think it's a really powerful combination. So, maybe you could tell us a little bit about the need for what you developed with advanced approval maps, and maybe start with regular approval maps. So I assume you looked at the approval maps in Acumatica and talk to us about what barriers you ran up against.
That is correct. So mid-2021, when we had started reviewing this ERP systems, one of the main and major requirements for the business was ability to go over the documents approval. And unfortunately, in the real world, not always approval are straightforward and all engineered. For example, when you look into Acumatica approval workflow, it says, hey, it should go from step 1 to step 2 to 3 to 4 to 5, and when hits the 5 all successfully, your document is approved. But in real world, what happens? Hey, a step 3 person is away for 2 weeks. You cannot hold up your documents for 2 weeks. Or you are in construction work, then you want to pay a subcontractor, even though your site superintendent is not part of your standard approval map. You need to get confirmation from that person. Hey, is this subcontractor work is good enough to pay? Is there any deficiency? It's the last stage of projects. A lot of if and then in the real world that it's not really, it's possible to engineer, or it's not engineered in the standard workflows that Acumatica has. So what we should do about that? To say, hey, send email all the time, send email, bring some stuff outside the Acumatica, use a third piece of application, for example, Outlook, to send email, then attach that one and all those things. Well, what is the approval workflow for? What is the point of having approval workflow if I have to run something parallel to manage my workflow? Or how should I overcome the issue if a manager is away for some time, for 2 weeks, he's not or she's not in the office, I cannot hold up all those invoices. What should I do about that? So that was a limitation on every single ERP that I reviewed and did gap analysis on that. Most of the ERP systems, that wasn't really possible to go and do customizations the way you want to do on that, and not much really flexible, or maybe not open source that you can see what's happening and what's running behind the scene. Acumatica was the only one I saw has this capability that you can look into that and change the things the way you want to work. So again, that was one thing. The second thing was, hey, there could be lots of ISVs in the market. You could utilize them. I reviewed a bunch of ISVs in the market as well, but the problem with ISVs were it seems in their world only the AP document is the only thing needs approval. Nothing else needs approval. So if you look into the ISVs in the market, you will see all they are focused on AP, and some of them a little bit on PO side as well, but not much in what about my AR invoices? What about my draft invoices I'm going to send to my client, which in Acumatica terminology called pro forma invoices? What about my change orders? What about my subcontracts? So what about my project budget? So there are tons of other documents that needs approval based on the company needs, and also they need a fluid approval workflow, but none of the ISVs in the market have this functionality to cover all of those screens and those documents that needs approval. In addition, some of the ISVs in the market, they needed you set up all the users and everything outside Acumatica. They kind of not really integrated into Acumatica. They were talking through the API or something to each other, but you had to set up lots of things. I don't want to give name, but if you look into, there are very good ones in the market. They have the limitations, only cover the AP and PO, and plus you have to set up everything twice, one inside Acumatica, second outside Acumatica. You have to have two browsers open, one for that system, one for Acumatica. That was the two major issues. One, not covering all the documents you need in the approval workflow. Second, some of them were outside the Acumatica standard platform, not running as ISV inside. So that was the two main reasons that encouraged and pushed me to do this advanced approval workflow inside Acumatica. That was to answer your question. So how this one is working?
I have
this
a quick
one
question
is
on
developed
that.
and deployed through publishing a customization package inside Acumatica. So you don't have to set up anything. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, quick question on that. Did you know going into the implementation that this would be part of it, or did you buy Acumatica, start implementing, and then realize we're going to go the customization route?
No, at the time I knew this is the limitations that Acumatica has. So, but there were a few limitations that this is one of them. There were three major other limitations that if maybe sometime in the future we'll go over that. But for this purpose, yeah, that was one of the limitations we knew Acumatica has. But we knew Acumatica has an engine that we can develop on it.
Gotcha. Okay, sorry. Keep going.
Okay, so to overcome these two major limitations, I had started working for the business needs as a kind of small pet project. But gradually I developed and expanded on it. Now it's a huge project by itself. It is developed inside Acumatica based on the Acumatica's standard approval map. I'm not talking about the workflow inside Acumatica that documents goes from hold, goes from pending approval, then let's say balanced and released and voided. I'm not talking about the workflow. I'm talking about the approval workflow. There is one specific step in Acumatica pending approval. That pending approval, you can repeat that many times. It can go to person A, to person B, to 3, and to person C and D, and so on. And that pending approval step, it's Acumatica terminology called approval map. I am talking about the approval map. So it is developed based on approval map and replaces the approval map, and also can work parallel with the Acumatica's standard approval map based on the user configuration. User can set up the configuration, how it wants to work. It can work parallel. It can totally replace the approval map. So this one, that there is no need to set up and replicate users or anything else outside the Acumatica standard platform, and all the access right permissions, everything is set up inside Acumatica platform. So you don't have to worry about something sitting outside Acumatica. You don't have to worry about backing up your data and documents and everything outside Acumatica. When you back up your Acumatica, wherever Acumatica sits, this one sits inside Acumatica as well. For the attachment management, this it uses Acumatica as a standard PDF annotator. I'm not sure you are familiar with that, or anyone listening to this one. This is something developed by Acumatica US. They call it Acumatica PDF annotator, that you can write up comments, you make notes on that, you highlight it, and for supporting document, but doesn't rely on that to work. But if you need to have your document kind of Annotating on PDF attachment, you will need to have that Acumatica's built-in PDF annotator.
Okay, can I ask on that? So that's interesting. I haven't used it much. I'm familiar with the feature. I think it's an Adobe integration. Is that right? Or is it now they baked it? They might have licensed Adobe and baked it in. I can't recall.
No, this is a free API connection to Adobe. You can set up for free connection to Adobe, always been free, and always I believe it's going to be free. So it is something just to annotate your document.
So it almost sounds like normally an approval map would be working on the transaction. So let's for this conversation, let's stick to AP bills. So your approval map, there's the tab on the AP, the bills and adjustment screen. Are you now somehow incorporating the file attachments into the workflow? How does that work?
No, Acumatica itself has the file attachments to the screens, to all screens. Around 2020 something screen, Acumatica attaches the PDF. This is not something I have added to that. This is Acumatica thing that adds the PDF annotator to any screen. But what I'm saying, if you want to write up and you have your document attachment, you don't need to go and find something to manage your attachments. I'm using Acumatica's own attachment management engine, so you don't have to worry about something in addition to what you have in Acumatica to be able to work with this one.
Right. Yeah. So you're storing files the same way Acumatica does, but you have incorporated files into the workflow process. It sounds like where you're actually it's almost like version controlling, and you know the exact version of the file that was approved or involved in that approval step.
It is one of the Acumatica's built-in PDF annotator to keep the version control on that. So, and whatever changes any user makes to the PDFs, it keeps the whole history of changes to the PDF attachment to the documents. When I say document, I mean the actual data inside the document. When I say attachment, I mean the PDF or whatever you have attached to that screen in Acumatica. So Acumatica itself does this one, and we have utilized that feature. You don't have to worry about version control and relying on any third-party application to do that for you.
Okay, so that's cool. So still sticking with an AP bill, I would have like the image of the AP bill attached to the transaction, normal approval map, it'd say pending approval. And as an approver, I could approve it or reject it. And I can't even recall if I get notes, but I don't have the ability to mock up the document. Sounds like you've incorporated the mocking up of the document. What other stuff have you incorporated in that? Like, do I get to suggest a new GL account, for example, or is it still just a note, or how does that work?
Okay, so let's first, before going into this one, I will prefer to explain how the other screens that you will need before you get into this documents like AP invoice approval. Just gonna add one point in here. So this approval workflow I'm talking about supports any Acumatica screen that has built-in approval workflow inside that. So again, it's around 25 of the screens in Acumatica, over 25, I guess, the screens that has approval workflow, as I named earlier, like AP, AR, pro forma invoices, PO, subcontract change orders, project budgets, cost projections, sales orders, all those stuff that has approval workflow. This advanced workflow works on them as well. So we'll have all the features and functionalities. So what we are going to expect from this advanced approval workflow, you can add comments when you click on the approve, click on the reject, click on the route, or click on the skip. There are 4 buttons you have on every single screen in Acumatica. Acumatica built-in feature has only approve, reject. And when you click on approve, it just gets approved. Nothing happens really. You can't write up any comment. You can't say anything. When you reject documents, it kind of doesn't exist anymore from system perspective. You can't really do further action on that. So in real world, you reject the document to person before you, or the person initiated the document, and you write up something for that person to take care of that comment and then send it back to the workflow. In Acumatica standard workflow, reject means, hey, the document is garbage. Don't worry about it, go start over. but it's not in real world. This is not something you want to happen. In Acumatica, okay.
Can I ask on that reject? So I'm a little fuzzy on my memory on this, but if I remember right, when you reject, it loses even the trail. Like you might have had 3 people approve it, and then if someone rejects it, it's almost like cleans out that history. Do you remember if that's right? And if it is, do you keep that history?
That is correct. That is correct, and I was going to go over that and just so in Acumatica approve also. On some of the screens like AP, you cannot write up any comment. On project modules, you can write comments. Like, for example, if you have a change order for project, you can write comment, but only can write a comment. You cannot do anything else about that. But on financial modules like AR and AP, those stuff, you cannot even write a comment. You click approve, documents get approved from your side, goes to the next person. Right, and you don't have the next person sees that, has nothing to can't understand what happened in earlier stage. Maybe you are writing a comment, hey, I'm approving this document, but make sure to do this one. But you cannot write anything like this when you're approving a document. This is the 2 standard buttons in Acumatica. So as I mentioned earlier, what if you are in construction work or you have a specific client that just has a credit hold or something, you need to get approval from your sales manager before approve your document. You want to get approval from someone outside the standard workflow. Then that person, when approves that person or that person comments on that, you want to continue your approval. So this is another feature we added into this advanced workflow, that you can route document to people outside the standard workflow. When you click on route, system shows a dialog to you. You can say, hey, I want to send this document to Tim, who is not inside the standard approval workflow. System will route the document to that person. That person can write the document, can write up whatever they want, and then route it back, or they approve it, and system will resume approval from the point left the approval and went out to the people outside the standard workflow. There is a 4th feature to that. Let's say my manager is away for 2 weeks, for 3 weeks, whatever reason. There's a 4th document. You want to send the document to person after that, or to final review, and get it paid for the meantime until that person comes back. There is a skip button, and again, a route and a skip are configurable. You can set up and you configure, hey, I want to have a skip and route for this approval workflow. And of course, it depends on the people permissions. If someone doesn't have access, doesn't have permission to do that, won't be able to do that. If you have not configured that one for the standard, for the advanced workflow, no one can do that. So the 2 layers of control to that, you either, when you configure the workflow, you say, hey, this workflow can do routing and can do skipping 2 different features. You can set each one individually as well. You can say, we want to have route, we don't want to skip. We want to skip, we don't want to have route, or we want to have both or none of them. And the second layer is based on the each individual permissions. If someone has permission, that button will be visible for that person. Otherwise, won't be visible at all to click on the approve, on the route or skip. Okay, so the skip is kind of bypassing specific steps and going to the next person. And in the document log, it clearly indicates this step is skipped by Tim when hit that skip button to push it to the next person. When next person or the final review looks into that, say, hey, this person has not approved this document, and clearly indicates that for the sake of internal controls and the log you want to have in the system. To answer your question, Acumatica's standard workflow, let's say you have 10 layers of approval, 8 layers of approval, went through 5, and then person 6, for whatever reason, wants to, hey, can you change the coding of GL account from 811 to 812? And that's all want to happen, right? And because the document is in pending approval mode, that person himself or herself cannot make these changes. You have to reject the document or put the document on hold. when you put your document on hold, everything is gone. So, and the approval workflow has to start over, go through person 1, 2, 3, 4 to person 8 that had the comment, right? So, and everything is wiped out. But in the advanced workflow, when someone puts the document on hold, creates a log and say, hey, this person put the document on hold for further modification. And also keeps when you reject as well, you can write up, hey, change the code 811, GL account 811, line 5 to 812, and then send it back. Again, the approval workflow here, again, depending on the approval workflow configuration, has the option to say, when I'm rejecting a document, go to the first person, go to the person before me, approve the document. And when the approval process starts again, you can say, hey, I want to resume from first step of the approval and go all the way from the first person to the last person, or you want to resume the approval from the person who rejected the document, right? So again, in real world, I understand for internal controls, you logically, when you sign on piece of paper and someone makes changes to the piece of paper, the initial person has to sign it. But in real world, for the efficiency, when you just change one GL account code, it doesn't really make sense. You go all over approvals, or you can just change a project cost code, right? A project division, whatever. It's everything goes to that project. You want to change a cost code. It doesn't have any impact on the amount you are going to pay. It doesn't have any impact on the due dates or nothing. It's everything the same, just distribution is a little bit different. There is no point really going and getting 5 other different approvals and starting over. So workflow has the functionality depending on your setting to start from the beginning or start from where it left and went back for the reject or put on hold. Yes.
Now, I'm not expecting that you'd be able to do this, but you're hitting a lot of features that I was not expecting. So I thought I might as well ask, like, if you said you can either have it go back through the workflow or just come back to whoever the last person was who rejected it, do you have the ability to do that on a field by field basis? So like you said, only if it's the GL account or the cost code, or is it all or nothing, like no matter what changes they suggested?
That putting on hold and those features, in Acumatica is based on each individual user. Let's say when you want to change for example, I can say user A can change the document total and amount due and everything that need to pay, and has option to change the distributions, but user B doesn't have the feature, doesn't have the permission to change the document amount, but can go and change the distribution. That is handled through the Acumatica standard access rights that you give to each individual person.
Yeah, I think you're talking about field level security there, right? So I'm assuming though in this case that the ones approving the document aren't making any changes to it. Then it goes back to someone who has the ability to make changes on the document. But could I set up different rules when I go route the document back into the approval process? Could I say, all right, I'm assuming the data entry person has permissions to change anything, but if they change the dollar amount, I want it to go back to the beginning of the approval and go back through. But if they only change the GL account or the cost code, go ahead and just resume at wherever it last was. Does that make sense?
I understand that. It's not developed this way, but it is possible to do that as well. If really some business needs that, definitely we can look into that. For example, we can put some verifications on some fields on the document header, for example, on the amount of documents, right? If the amount of documents is changing, then it has to start over from the beginning. If the document amount is not changing, just the distribution is changing, the total remains unchanged, then it can go from this first step or it can resume from where it was left out. So, but right now, no, it doesn't do that. We rely on Acumatica permissions and the access rights to do that. But definitely, it's not a big change. It definitely can be made. And thank you for pointing this one out. I will make note of that to
Yeah,
we can talk.
it's just an idea, right? I mean, you're hitting so many
Yeah.
features here, more than I was expecting. I thought I would ask. Sorry, go ahead, keep going, describing what you got.
Okay, so now I'm going to step a little bit back, how this starts. So first, as I said, this is going to be a customization package in the Acumatica enabling features. Under the approval workflow, users, when this one published, users will see an advanced approval workflow tick box that they can tick it and make it active. And under that, they're going to have two tick boxes, as I mentioned, to are we allowing routing and skipping for the whole system process or not? Then we'll get into user permissions later, but at this point, you are either enabling skipping, or a company maybe say, hey, for the sake of internal control, I don't want to have this one. So always I want to, even my managers are away for 2 weeks, I want to wait for that to come back, or I want to send it to someone else, then that's fine. Still, you can enable and disable this one. When published, in the site preferences, user can, the system admin, for every single data entry document, like AP invoice, AR, pro forma, change request, change order, purchase order, subcontract projects, budget approval, cost projections, sales orders, all those type of things, for each one of them, they will have 3 options to set for them. This is all kind of custom drop downs in there. They can select advanced workflow only. They can select standard workflow only. They can select advanced and standard workflow. So if the advanced workflow only, it will replace Acumatica's standard workflow. If you say, hey, I want to continue my more complex screens with this advanced, and I want to leave few screens which is not that complicated out, just use Acumatica standard approval, you can do it as well. And if you want to have both parallel, you can have that one as well. So it all depends on your configuration.
What's a scenario where you would want to have both? I mean, is there something that the standard one does that the advanced doesn't do that you might still need? Or yeah, tell me about that.
No, and whatever standard does, advanced does, and more. So just in case someone wants to, for example, if they want a simpler version for, let's say, auto-approve documents, they have some documents they want to just quickly put on auto-approve. They receive something, let's say the manager or the executive signed on it, hey, just go ahead and pay it. The AP data entry enters and just want to approve it right away. There are some very,
or you could do it like maybe documents under $1,000 are going to use the standard with my conditions, or documents over 1,000 are going to get more complicated. Okay.
That's a little bit more. That one goes to the Acumatica approval, assignment and approval steps and rules, what you are explaining. So we can set rules. You can say if it is less than 1,000, it goes only to 2 steps, right? If, for example, if I have 10 level of approval, for example, if it is less than $100, for example, assume it is auto approve. It is less than $1,000, goes only to 3 steps in here, then gets approved if it is the 3rd person approved it. If it is less than 10,000, then goes up to here, up to level 8, and then approves. It's over 25,000, for example, just I'm giving the numbers, should go all the way through the approvals. And this is in addition what I was explaining. Let's say you have something, your manager already, the company owner signed the document, hey, go ahead and pay this one. You don't need more approvals on that. You want to auto-approve it. You just want a simple click on that and auto-approve and done, right? Data entry enters it, you just approves it and cuts a check for that. So we didn't want to eliminate any possibilities. That is why it's left off. But if you always want to have advanced workflow in place, you can say, hey, always only activate advanced workflow. All standard workflow will go away and will replace for that specific screen with the advanced workflow. It depends on the user need, how they want to configure that. How this advanced workflow starts, we have some approval classes. Let's say we have project-based approval, we have department-based approvals, we have company-based, we have or warehouse-based approval or customer-based approval, different type of classes, depending on the company configuration. If a company, it's a trade company, possibly for their AR invoices, they want by customers. If it is a construction company, they want to have approvals based on their projects, right? Because each project can have their own project coordinator, project manager, project accountant, VP of construction, different things. If it is a trade company, possibly for the bigger clients, they will have some sales rep, sales manager, depending on the hierarchy. They can set up all those hierarchies on each master record. And I say master record, I mean like customer, like vendor, like project, those type of things. You can set up to 10 level of approval on each master record. And this will translate and incorporate to the approval map. When you say, hey, my approval route is based on the projects, it will look into that, whatever the project is, will go through those people are a stakeholder for the project. When you say my approval rate is based, my approval route is based on the customer, it will look into the customer, who are the approvers attached to that customer. So again, this slide, unlike other approvals in the market that you can see, you will set up a very, very complex rules and if and then in your approvals, or you have to set up many approvals to be able to manage this one, because you cannot attach the approvers to the master records. You have to manage everything through the rules and the steps and everything that you set up through the approval chain, approval channel, not through the approval chain. The approval chain, I mean those people you set up on a project, those people you set up on the customer, or on a branch of yours, or a company or a department, whatever. So when you set up those people on the master records, yes.
Do you set them up in user-defined fields, or how do you set them up on the master?
So there are, it's labeled level 1, 2, 3, 4, up to 10. So on the master record, the custom fields, when you publish your customization package, it adds all those fields to the master records.
Got it. Okay.
So then user goes and selects who is the different levels of approvers and who are the people who have to approve it. If you are a construction company, you have 100 projects, you just set up your approvers once when you set up your project. You set up your project, say, this is the people who are going to approve these documents for the project unless there is a change to the project. You don't have to go play with your approval formulas. So in most of the approval engines, you have to play with your rules. Say, if this is a project, gonna go to this person. If this is a project, gonna go to this person. You're gonna end up hundreds of rules in your approval map. But here you set up your approvers on the master records.
Yeah, no, that's a real headache to then have to go to another screen to add a new project to the approval map logic. Yeah, that's error prone and clunky. Yeah, I agree. So you don't have to do that.
It's high maintenance. We had this practice. The reason I came up with this idea, we had again, I don't want to give name. We are using it's a pretty well-known actually approval. You have to set up your approval rules all the time when you set up, and you have to play. Let's put it this way: you have to play and modify your approval rules, add more conditions to your approvals route and approvals rules anytime you set up a new project. So in the company, because I'm giving project because the company was project based. If it is a trade, it's going to be customer. So it's really, that was a nightmare for me and for our project reporting manager to maintain and keep this updated. And as you said, it's always error prone. But when you set up once and it's done, you're good to go. You don't play with your configuration. You just play when you set up your master record, you say, hey, it's very easy. This names goes in here, and that's it. In the next step, when you have this one, each user, not at the corporate level, each user can have their own default approval routes. So if I am working in the project world, then I can have my approval route number 1, for example, that goes to these steps. If you are a purchasing manager, that you create purchase order and goes there, you can have your own approval route, default approval route. And when you are in API screen, when you POS screen, in the budget screen, wherever you are, system will default that approval route for you just for sake of convenience of the user. And they can change that route on the data entry screens, but it will default for you the screen, the route you want to follow typically. At the later step, when all this set up, we will utilize Acumatica's assignment and approval map. Here is when you set up one time, you set up all your rules and everything for you. You can set up, hey, this is a step 1 to 10. If it is less than 10,000, goes in here. If this more than 10,000, goes in here. Here you set up one time, you set up all your rules in here, and you will incorporate the master record approvers from your project as well. So when you set up my project number, my approvers number 1 to 10 are here in the step 1 to 10, you will set those names. If one step is empty, approval workflow will automatically skip that. If the threshold is not met, approval workflow will automatically skip that, right? That's the whole purpose of having the approvers on the master records. Still, you can have approvers here when you set up your assignment and approval map if you don't want to do that. But this is the suggested way to do that because it alleviates lots of pain from maintaining your workflows. Yes.
Can I ask, so where you're setting this up, is that on the normal approval map screen and you've added some custom stuff to it, or is it an entirely different screen so that you have the flexibility to do more things?
No, that's just a custom screen. It's called approval routes. It's a custom screen. It's all brand new. There doesn't exist in Acumatica without this customization package. And this screen has the function. You can say, hey, default to initial step or default to the couple of tick boxes on them for each approval routes that you set up. It defaults to the initial step who generated the approval, initiated the approval, or goes to the previous person. You can say retain the approval history or don't retain it. When you say retain it, it means, okay, resume from where I left the document and reject it back. When you say don't retain the document, it means start over and go through all approvals, even though previously approved. But still, system will keep the log. Don't mistake it with the system wiping out all the logs. The logs will be kept. Nothing will be eliminated, even though you say start over. It just adds to that log. Nothing will be eliminated from the system. So it allows you to completely skip the steps. So this is a tick box saying, hey, if I'm skipping a step, assume that one isn't approved, but it's still going to show the flag as skipped, but assumes that one is, as I said, the manager is away for 2 weeks. You skip that one, it will flag that the step as complete, but will show as a skipped step. And there's another kind of fancy feature on that for the last approvers, those who click on the approve. Usually the last people are the busy executives and those type of people. They don't want to really see this dialog box when you say, then they don't want to write up comments. They just see and they say, okay, you have an option here, say, hey, I want to show the approval dialog that they can write up comments and everything on that on the last step, or you just want to, for the last person in the chain, you want just click approve and document get approved. This is a tick box. You can set that one just for the sake of time saving for the busy executives that usually are the last people in the chain. It is again configurable and based on the company preferences. And just to summarize, yeah, that was a custom screen. It doesn't exist.
I was hoping you would say that, by the way. So good.
yeah, no, it doesn't exist. So on top of every single data entry screen, you will have the 4 bottom of approve, reject, route, skip. And on top of each document, there is a custom field that shows what is your approval route you are going to follow. As I said, this one is by default will come from the user preferences. If I prefer to go the route number 1, I can set up route number 1. User Z wants to go from route number 2. Usually they will set up a default, but here they can change it, and system follow this approval routes as we talked. So when you click on each approval document, when you release it, you remove the document from hold and goes to the pending approval status. If you recall from Acumatica, that's annoying thing in Acumatica, really. There is an approve and reject button there. You are not an authorized approver. You click on the approve button, and then system says, hey, you are not an authorized approver. You are not an authorized, you don't have something like this. This says you are not allowed, or you're not authorized to approve this document. If I'm not authorized, why you are showing this approve button to me at all, right? So this approval workflow, this advanced one, this remove these things as well. So if you are not an approver, if you are not an authorized approver, you won't see that. If you can't authorize, you are not authorized to reject people to reject it, you won't see that. But if you are authorized, then when you click on that, it will show a very neat and clean dialog box for you. At the top shows what is your map name. Basically, it's going to be, for example, bills and adjustment approval map, for example. It's a project budget approval map. Then see what is the route that you are following. Going to show route number 1, A, B, C, whatever the route is you are following. What is the step here? Next step, the system is going to send this document. If you have 10 steps, you know, it's now going to step 6, step 5, whatever. What rule is following this one? Basically, it goes to whatever is this. It's a manager, it's a supervisor, it's executive, whatever it is, and who is going to receive these documents. It's all read-only, but shows all this information. When you click on the approve or click on the reject, shows all this information for you. And you have an editable comment box in here that you can write up comments. Hey, I'm approving this document, but make sure to attach PO, for example. If you're rejecting this one, unlike Acumatica doesn't allow you to write up anything, I'm rejecting, then that person that gets the rejected documents, hey, have to call you, or you have to send an email. Why did you reject this one? How that person should know what was in your brain when you rejected this document, right? When you're rejecting here, you also can write up comments, and the person who received the rejected documents sees why did you reject this document. On the routing panel, you have all these features, plus you have a field for assignee. You say, hey, I'm routing this document to person outside the standard workflow that I'm following typically, and you can select the person you want to route the document. And you also have the right document, hey, Mr. A, can you look into that? Are you fine with the subcontractor work quality? This is a final payment, can we make it happen, or you want to wait and whatever? So, right, you can write a comment for that. When you skipping the documents, in addition, you can set up this, you want to skip 2 steps, 3 steps, 1 step, and go to the X step after yourself. It will allow you to select a step as well and write up comments as well. Hey, Mr. X is away. I'm sending these documents to you. Please have a look, and if it's fine, if someone is replacing that person, for example, when he's on vacation or leave or whatever, that you can skip that document as well. And again, that is all based on the permissions. Approve, reject, route, skip, all based on each individual permission and based on their standard Acumatica restrictions. For example, if someone doesn't have an access to project, won't see the approval for that project. If you don't have access to some customer, you won't see those customers, right? This is also follows all the rules that Acumatica has for the row level security. Yes.
So it's clear to me that there's a lot of substance to this, and I got to back up here. And you reached out to me over email. Thanks to Chris Hackett, the Acumatica community manager, for connecting us. And my response was, I get bombarded with a lot of these, hey, I've got something cool emails, and my filter is to use the podcast. I try to do one of these every week. And hey, if you got the guts to come on to a non-edited podcast and talk about your stuff, then you get through my filter. You had the guts to do it. And I just wasn't sure what kind of thing you had built. It's clear to me you've got a lot of substance, and it's clear to me that we can't even do it justice in a podcast episode. You also wanted to share your screen, and show it, but the audience wouldn't see that. And so I didn't want to see it since the audience can't see it. I think a demo would be the next step I'd be interested in. But I like this podcast format because it lets us sort of stay at a higher level. Once you share your screen, it's like you drop down into the weeds, right? And
Yeah.
And so for this first pass in my brain, I like doing the audio, and the stuff that you're describing is, again, way more substantial than I was expecting. So it's clear to me you've got a lot of stuff here. I was wondering at this point, I know that you've got more features to describe, but for the sake of this episode, at this point, there's one particular Acumatica customer that I have in mind. And I have two things that they're looking for that maybe we could address from a feature standpoint. And then I'd like to kind of pull back up and ask broader what you're looking to do with this going forward. And then maybe we wrap that up for today. But next we can talk about a next step. But I think a demo, where you could actually share your screen and finding some way to share that in the related links on this podcast episode might be a good next step. But how about for the rest of this episode, I got two features I want to ask you about for this particular client that I'm thinking about. And the first one is line level approvals. So Acumatica document approvals are document level. I'm not even sure how this would work, but one scenario that they have is we're just talking AP bills in this scenario, and you might have an AP bill with 5 lines on it, and you have multiple branches involved on those lines. And you want one branch to go to one person, another branch to go to another person for approval. I know that with the regular approval maps, you can involve line level fields, but I haven't tested it out to know, is it really looking at all the lines, or is it just looking at the first line? Because what happens if you have a document that has more than one branch on it? I don't know if I described the scenario well, but do you do anything with a line level approval?
No, I don't believe even Acumatica itself does it. We had this thing for it rarely, but would happen in the scenario that I worked on it for the project. One invoice could have gone to 2 different projects. So as you said, there are in 2 lines, one project A, project B. But the way it is handled, it's one of the reasons for the routing is to have the second project people involved in this route. Whatever was the most important or biggest dollar value would go by default to that route, and the second, you could route the document out to the second project that has the lowest possibly cost or whatever involved that. Acumatica has you can involve the line, but the problem is Acumatica keeps the status of the document by document, not by line. If let's say person A, which for the branch or project or whatever, if person A say approve, person B sends reject, then what is document status? Acumatica platform does not support this at all. So that was one of the things we faced, but really wasn't that big of deal. And one of the things that at the end we came up to kind of communicating with the major suppliers and subcontractors. The company had this structure, but kind of we did a little of a clear clarity on that. Hey, you will need to get the invoices. If the big dollars, you will need to get the invoices by project. If there's the project and it's important for you really to keep it separate and have different approvals on that, you will need to get it by project. So Acumatica, unfortunately, because keeps the status field on the document header, you cannot do that.
But in your scenario, you'd pick one project.
And Tim, I haven't seen any approval workflows that does it. So that's one of the reasons, maybe because of the limitation of Acumatica, they cannot manage this one.
And I agree with you. Good answer, because just because it's an ask doesn't mean it really should be done, right? And it's not like it's a must-have. But I'm curious, in your project scenario, basically pick one project to rule the day on this document. Are you doing that? Sounds like with the route, you choose the route for it to go down?
Yeah, so on the route, let's say I have one invoice goes to 2 projects. One is, let's say, 8,000, one is 2,000. So I pick the project on the top for that document, the main project on the top on document header. Then on the line, I will say, hey, project A and B, one is 8,000, one is 2,000. So because the line A goes 8,000 to project A, system automatically will send to the project A anyways, right? To get the approval on that. For the project B, so that's up to the people who are involved in the project. For example, the project manager says, hey, this is project A is mine, project B is not mine. Then that person routes to the project B manager to get approval on that.
But it's done manually, like they're manually picking project B in the routing of the document, or it's doing it based on it's manually. So what about on the date of the document? Can you at least look at the first line? Like maybe let's say it's something that's not on the header, maybe the cost code or something like that. Could it look at the first line to determine where it should go? That way, you know, there's only one value that you're going to find.
It always on the document header, whatever you have. I can't even think of something that is not in the document header. The most complex one is the project ones, because if you are creating an invoice, always your customer is on. If you are creating a GL entry, always your branch is on the top. There is no way that Acumatica doesn't have those fields that you rely on them for approval on the top. The only limitation that Acumatica has, for example, if you're in AP module or a PO module, if you say single project, if you disable the single project, it will hide those fields from documents. The fields exist, but Acumatica hides it. So, but this customization, one of the things that this customization does, always keeps those fields visible and enabled for user, of course, depending on the document situation, document status. But even though you have enabled the multiple project, logically, Acumatica would hide the project on top of the document, but this approval always keeps that project enabled and visible for user, or for the other fields as well.
So it's clear to me you've thought this scenario through. I think that's to be the key thing I gleaned from your response. I got one other question, then I wanted to kind of talk high level because I got about 10 minutes for my next call. The other thing is mobile app. Does it work on the Acumatica mobile app?
Yeah, for the approval, yes, you can do it approval. It's, it's really, really Acumatica. It's lots of information to see. For example, if you have an AP invoice, or if one of the companies for the executive always used to do it on the cell phone, approve on the cell phone. It's really difficult because of the nature of the screens. It's difficult to work on the mobile app with that, but if the user or tablet or something, but yes, it works on the mobile app as well.
Yeah, another one of those. Should you do it? I don't know, but it's first a can you do it? All right, yeah. So that's great. I think what I want to do is send this episode to this client that I'm thinking of, again, as just a way to get through a filter, right? And then we go from there. So Matt,
sure. I had a presentation. I had made a little presentation to show it to you, but because we didn't go over that, I will email it to you if you feel comfortable to send it to the client. So as I said, you have only a few minutes. Actually, it's a lot more to that. I wanted to cover what we
yeah, I know you can't do it justice on this episode. So, and also I'll put it on the related links, the presentation that you did. But I want to
just title two things that in here, just 1 minute in here. So one of the amazing thing that we have here is all-in-one approval dashboard, right? So because the whole purpose of this one is when I log into system, I see all my approvals in one place. I don't mean just seeing the AP invoices. I mean, say in one place, I see my PO, I see my AP invoice, my budget, my change orders, everything in one screen. And when you click on that, it will direct you to the screen, to the document you want to approve it. When you close that document, we'll take out the one you approved and we'll show the rest to you to approve. So all in one place, you don't have to go to many screens to approve your documents, right? That's the good thing. This is really a great thing to have. And one is the monitoring dashboard. At the end of the month, especially, you want to do your accruals. You want how much documents is sitting with whom, and when you are going to bombard from the people they have not approved the documents before you, right? So when you are in approval chain, you are an executive, hey, before everything hits your dashboard, you're going to have many people before you. So there is a visibility over the dashboards. They can say, hey, you can see each person how much has in their approval, pending approval queue to approve. By person, you can see how much everyone holds to approve. And when you click on that, it will show the detail of the document. And again, when you click on that, you see the list of the documents pending approval for each person. You can go into that if you have permissions, enough permissions. And also we have utilized the Acumatica side panel in here. When you click on an AP invoice, on the right side, you will see the document detail information. When you have the PO, you will see the same thing. Basically, whatever type of documents you have on the left, you will see the side panel will show the document detail on the right that can easily click on approve, reject, route, or whatever. So that's just what I mean.
You sound like an ISV to me. You've got the passion about this. You've built something substantial, and I know you want to share every little detail. And I want to give you the opportunity to do that, in the form of demos or your presentation, whatever. I know we didn't do it justice here, but how about back up a second to the business level? It's my understanding that you built this as like an independent contractor for an Acumatica customer that's actually using it and they love it.
Yeah.
Where are you looking to go from here? Are you looking to turn into an official Acumatica ISV, or is this something you're just going to sell on the side? Talk to me about it from a business standpoint.
I'm exploring the options right now. So tomorrow I'm meeting with Acumatica, one Acumatica guys for the possible ISV solutions. I'm not sure, really, I haven't thought that much deep about that. Yes, it started as pet project for that customer. Actually, what customer has is not really as big as I presented in here. It has maybe 20-30% of the stuff that we have in here. The rest is not there at all. So this one is because that was specific for project. Now this one can be based on the customer, can be based on the division, can be based on whatever vendor. It's a much bigger than what it's live on the customer side. But the customer is using from beginning of 2022. It's been live for 9 months, and there has been in past 5-6 months, even I haven't done a single tweak on that one for the customer. So it's really working. It's no problem at all. Yeah, I'm exploring the options. The side sales will be option. I don't know really right now, but I prefer to be possibly review the code and get the confirmation from Acumatica, and then an ISV that can be published inside Acumatica. And I appreciate if you have some insights, some feedback, some thoughts on that, share it with me. Definitely, I'm open to that.
Yeah. So like, let's say you had someone interested in it now, would you just sell it like on a time and materials basis, maybe with a base cost, and then, hey, I'll support it for you on time and materials? Are you just going to put it up on GitHub for free? What if you had someone come to you today and say, hey, I'd like to take this for a test drive? What would you say?
Sure. Yeah. We can give a test run. So we can give it a limited license for a month or so. They can run it. They can test it. If they're happy, then sure, we can take it from there. If they're not happy, nothing for them to lose.
Okay. Yeah. So you're still working out exactly how you would sell it. Would this be an official product? Would it maybe before it is, sounds like you'd like to get certified as an Acumatica ISV? That sounds like what you're thinking.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'm saying. I prefer to be an ISV because I like Acumatica, have a second eye on that and do the code reviews and those type of things that make sure everything is working as they expected. But the problem is I haven't graduated from Acumatica University, so I can't really. They're one of the requirements for that. Even though I have done all the work, but I'm not a graduated person from the university. So maybe right now, maybe I do it. But
that means absolutely nothing to me personally. But yeah, you got to check your boxes.
No, it is a requirement, anyways. So it is a requirement.
Right. Right. No, I understand. You got to jump through the hoops that you need to jump through. But I mean, this is cool. It sounds like you really built something substantial, and it's exciting that you're really thinking to take it to the next level. And, thanks for coming on and sharing about it in a podcast format. Again, just the fact that you had the guts to do that shows me that you're serious about this. And then listening to you talk about the features, you've got something cool here. This is interesting.
Tim, it is honestly, it is amazing. It is for the business flow and managing your documents and taking care of your approvals. It is amazing, and you don't have to go anywhere else for AR for something, for AP for something. You don't have to worry about any of those. It's all in one place, and all lives and resides in Acumatica, right? And when you look into the interface, it doesn't show much because really there is not much on the screen, but it's a huge engine running behind the scene to make all these things happen, right? So some of the screens, some of the projects have lots of screen, a little bit of codes behind the scene. This one it's exactly the opposite. It's a few tiny screen, but a huge screen. As I said, over 12,000 line of code running behind just for this few tiny screens.
No, I get it. It's clear to me there's substance. And that's why I kind of like the talk about it format too, right? And that the substance to me comes across more clearly that even than maybe if you were to have shown your screen. So that's clear to me. And it's very cool that you built this, and I'm excited to see where it goes from here. I'm going to pass this along to the one client I'm thinking of, and we'll see where this goes. But thanks again for coming on and sharing this with us.
Sure, no problem at all. I will be happy to give them a demo if they wanted as well. No problem at all.
All right. Well, that's it for now. We'll catch you on the next episode of augforums.com Real Talk. Thanks for listening, and take care.